Now, blended learning doesn't always look the same. There's many different models in many different settings all across the world.
At the Christensen Institute, we've been doing our best to actually catalog and give different names for what these different types of models are so that people can have a common language to communicate what they are and are not doing with blended learning, but also so that we don't fall into this game where you show up and you say, mine's blended learning and yours isn't.
Even though we just did that in our last quiz. Now, for the sake of this course, we're going to focus on three main models. The first is called a station rotation model. The second is the lab rotation model. And the third is the flex model.
So let's dive into the first model, the station rotation model. In a station rotation model, as we've said, students are rotating between different stations. So here what we see is that some students might start with teacher-led instruction. Then they move to collaborative activities and stations, basically projects with other students. And then they move once again to that time when they're actually working on the computers and online learning.
So our first protagonist school is KIPP Los Angeles, and we'll be visiting a school called KIPP Comienza Prep that was founded in 2010 by their founding principal, Margarita Flores. This school is super interesting because they use a station rotation model as a core part of their educational model. Essentially, for two different 75-minute blocks, students have rotations within their classrooms to go after their holy grail, which is all about small group instructional time with one teacher with a small group of students. In that time, they can make fascinating gains on students' comprehension and math skills, while other students are in the classroom doing online learning to develop some new skills or practice old ideas. This school is a very typical urban elementary school in Los Angeles Unified School District. It's over 90% Latino and free reduced lunch students, and they have some of the highest test scores in the state of California in just their first few years of being in existence. Among the many things that KIPP LA does well and the strategies they use, they're zoning in on blended learning as a key change strategy to get out-of-the-box results.
So let's dive into our second model, Brian. The second model is called the lab rotation. Take a look at the definition. This is a generic picture of a lab rotation model. Lab rotations are taking lots of different forms, but the basic idea is similar across all of them. You can see in these three images over here on the left and top that students are in traditional classrooms with other students represented by those blue dots, with teachers in the red who are just leading them through very traditional instruction. And then students rotate out at very specific times to that bottom right-hand square, which is the learning lab, and that's where they're working online individually at computers. So in the lab rotation model, what you've probably figured out is that it's very similar in some respects to the station rotation model. The difference is in the station rotation, students are rotating within a given classroom, whereas in the lab rotation, they're actually rotating out to a learning lab where students are actually doing their online learning. We've got a great protagonist to really showcase this lab rotation model in Navigator Schools, Brian.
Yeah, so Navigator was founded by Sharon Waller and James Dent back in 2011, and we'll be visiting their Gilroy Prep campus. And what they've done so neatly at this campus is combine the best of a traditional sort of tech-enabled classroom with thoughtful use of a learning lab, where students rotate out on a day-to-day basis based on their data for what they need to practice. And they're on iPads or laptops working on a couple of different pieces of software to support their reading or to go deeper in their math.
It sounds like a really thoughtful model. How have their results been?
I mean, it's a great story. So this is a community where the students are about 67% English language learners. And in their very first year, they had one of the highest test scores in the state of California. I'm really excited to take you into the school and show you some footage of this place.
It's going to be fun to see. And for our third model, we've got the flex model of blended learning. And for this one, take a look at the definition, and then we'll come back and talk about it as well. So in this picture of a flex school, we're just showing a generic flex model because lots of flex schools are doing very different setups within their actual physical space. In this particular model, what you see is that there's a central learning space where students have their individual offices, and you can see that each student has their computer, which is where they learn online. Now, around the perimeter of this central space are where there's lots of breakout rooms. You see the breakout rooms where students can work in small groups. You see a breakout room where students can go for their science instruction and actually do their lab work. You see a social area down at the bottom, and this is where students can jump in, sort of like a cafe, and actually learn with other peers when it suits their purpose. And the big idea, right, is that students are moving flexibly through these different modalities based on what they need when they need it. So in a flex model, the big idea is that it differs from a rotation because students aren't constrained to spend a certain amount of time in any given learning activity. Instead, every student, in essence, has a customized playlist for what they need when they need it. We have a great protagonist to showcase the flex model that both of us are really excited about, called Summit Public Schools.
So Summit was founded in 2003 by Diane Tavener, and we're going to be visiting their Denali campus in Sunnyvale, California. Now, this is a little hard to explain, but the big idea here is kids go as fast as they need, as fast as they can, and in different pathways depending on what they're ready for. So think of it as a long playlist that's cultivated by the teachers for the students. At the beginning of a unit, a student takes a mastery quiz to see what they need to know. And if they already know this material, they can go right over into the testing room, take the assessment, and show mastery. But assuming they don't, they work through this playlist. And maybe the playlist has a Khan Academy video, or a lecture that the teachers recorded, or maybe it's a hands-on project with the teacher or the other students. The key is it's truly proficiency-based, it's truly mastery-based, and by doing a large portion of the day under this flex model, they free up some time to do different things and go after some of that deeper learning concept. So they're starting to put project-based learning into their school and really try some different approaches to get agency into the hands of their students.
And something I think you'll see as we actually visit Summit on the ground is that student agency is really palpable and a big part of that model. But why don't you tell us about who they're actually serving in these schools and how they've done?
Great. So Summit has 6 campuses throughout the Bay Area currently and is expanding. They have a really nice mix across income levels with some low income, middle income, and some higher income students as well. And the results have just been very strong. Their founding school, which has got the most experience, is perennially on the U.S. News and World Report list of top high schools in America.